Hi, Kenanow students. Today is a video on just the basics for unit planning. So this will give you some tips and tricks and how to kind of get started in unit planning. This is just a general overview. And if you need something more specific than this, once you know the basics, then you're going to contact your Kenanow field placement instructor to book a one-on-one or small group session to get into your specifics for your field placement. Okay, so first things first is how do we start? So unit planning seems like this big, huge thing because you might be planning a unit that is for a month, but also unit plans can be for 2 weeks or they can be for 2 months. So it all depends on what you need to teach your specific set of outcomes. And the first thing you need to think about is what is the purpose? And the purpose is going to come from the curriculum. So stay focused on the curriculum and your specific purpose for this unit. And that's how you're going to start, but then you have to kind of skip to the end and think of the assessments you need to do. So this is backwards design. So we're thinking of the assessments that we're going to do at the end. So questions that need to be in your head while you're planning before you even start is, what do your students need to know? How can your students show what they know? And you need to know the destination before you can plan the trip. So you have to figure out, okay, this is where I want them to be. So what are the things I'm going to put in my unit plan? What lessons do I need to include to get them where they need to be? So you have to plan that assessment before you can even start thinking about what lessons you're going to include. So this is the first sheet, the cover page, and all of this is on Word, so these boxes will expand as much as you need them to. So we are going to just, in this top part, we type in the title of the unit plan. You don't need to be fancy here. Your title could be rocks and minerals, right? It can be particle theory of matter. Whatever it is, generally it comes from the curriculum. You're going to include the easy stuff like the subject, the grade, the time frame. Now the time frame I leave blank until the last thing because I might think this is a 4-week unit, but when I actually plan it out, maybe it's 5 weeks or maybe it's 3 weeks. So I leave that blank until I finish the planning on the next page. Over here, we have the unit essential questions and the focus. So what are the essential questions? What are the things that your students by the end of this unit need to be able to answer? So maybe it's 1 to 4 questions. Of course, this depends on the unit that you're doing, but if they can answer these questions, then they've got what they need from this unit. So it's not a question for every single outcome. It's just generally, what do they need to know? Can they answer those questions by the end? The other thing is, again, think of your purpose. What is the point of this unit? What are your students going to know by the end? So this is written in paragraph form, and it's very brief. Okay, so generally speaking, this is the whole point of this. By the end of this, my students will know X, Y, Z. Sometimes I like to do this one in bullet points. I find sometimes like I'm more focused that way. That's up to you. The next section here is the unit overview. And the unit overview is in paragraph form. You're just writing a very brief paragraph. And it's going to explain everything that the students are going to learn and do in the unit. So I also include extra sentences for things like field trips, a special project, activities, and what the final assessment's going to be. And the bottom, well, this one's easy. You just put your name here. GLOs and SLOs, I'm copying and pasting directly from the curriculum document, and I'm keeping it in bullet point form. So just copy and paste every single GLO and SLO you are doing. And you're going to copy the whole thing, the code and the actual complete sentence. Because later in our unit, we're only going to use the codes. And so we can refer to this first page and look up the code, and we have the whole sentence there. Okay, because nobody in their right mind memorizes the codes for every curriculum outcome. Now let's look at this first page, some examples of this, okay? Now you can see that the boxes expand, so this actually ended up being 2 pages, but this is an example from a unit plan that I did in grade 2. It is a science unit plan for growth and changes in animals. So if we look here, we have the title, Growth and Changes in Animals. That's the name of the science unit in grade 2 curriculum. It is science, it's grade 2, and it's 4 weeks. I did not fill this out until I was done the next page, but I came back and typed it in. The unit essential questions and the focus. So I just have a series of questions. Okay, over here I have a little note. Stay focused by having only a few questions. What is the most important enduring understandings the students need? Now, when you look here on this page of all my GLOs and SLOs, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, tons of GLOs and SLOs, because this is all of the science SLOs that I have to teach for this unit. But I'm only doing 4 questions because these kind of work together. The SLOs work together, and I kind of made them more concise. So, what do humans and animals look like, and how does it change over their lifespans? What do humans and animals need to grow and develop? What do humans and animals eat to stay healthy? What is the importance of reproduction? And when we go through the SLOs, you'll see that they all kind of fit into these 4 questions in some way. The unit overview is again in paragraph form. When you're writing this, please remember to stay grounded in Manitoba, specifically the North, and always include Indigenous content, pedagogies, and knowledge. This is what takes a little bit of extra time. You have to find the ways that it fits to make it grounded in real life of where you are. So if you get a job next year in Siberia, then your job is to make sure that your curriculum is grounded in Siberia. But we are here in northern Manitoba, and we want to ground it into their real life. So I'm going to read through this. You can fast forward if you don't want to hear me reading. But in this unit, grade 2s will explore a variety of animals and how they grow and change through their lifespan. Students will compare animals and humans. Topics include classifying animals, reproduction, nutrition, life cycles, lifespans, and how to properly care for animals. We will focus on animals that are found in northern Manitoba to maintain our sense of place. To observe insects and birds, students will go on the land and make observations. To observe growth and changes in animals, students will grow painted lady butterflies from caterpillars and make a series of observations. This will be done during small groups and not in the lesson proper. Students will complete a research project on a given animal and investigate its life processes. As a final task, students will complete an action project where they advertise and collect items for the Thompson Humane Society. Each class will end with a sharing circle in the carpet area. Students will be invited to share what they learned during the lesson. And then I have a special note at the bottom. Outcomes about human nutrition are not covered in this unit, but referenced to as they were covered in a previous health unit. So because this was really from my grade 2 class, I had already taught nutrition for humans during health because it's a part of our health curriculum. So then I didn't reteach it as a formal lesson in this unit, which happens at the end of the year. I just was able to refer to it. So I just added that note, and that's why over here in my GLOs and SLOs, I have a few things that I crossed off because even though it is in the curriculum, I didn't include it because I've already taught it. Now, in the curriculum, it tells us that we have to, recognize this one here, recognize that all animals can have offspring and that offspring generally resemble their parents. Now, because this is, I'm teaching this in northern Manitoba, I focused on animals that are found in northern Manitoba. That's how I make it place-based and land-based here. So the curriculum doesn't say you must do caribou and moose and bears, and I could literally do giraffes. It would still fit. But giraffes are not found in northern Manitoba, and I want to make it as close to realistic for them as I can. And so that's why I did that. So this is how you're getting the Indigenous perspectives, content, pedagogies, and knowledge into it. The other thing I want to point out is the fact that I'm ending every class with a sharing circle in the carpet area. This is not Indigenous content. This is not Indigenous topic. This is how I am including Indigenous pedagogy. So an Indigenous way of teaching, an Indigenous way of sharing thoughts and knowledge. So not everything has to be a topic. So this is when you're thinking, okay, well, I'm doing a unit on fractions and I can't think of how to, air quotes, make this Indigenous. Well, you're not making anything be anything. You can teach it in a way that is more group work, discussion based, storytelling, sharing circles like I did here. That is how we are including Indigenous perspective. So try to not only think in a content topic way when planning your unit plans, because that actually is harder to do. It's easier to just teach in an Indigenous way with Indigenous philosophies. Now, the SLOs, I actually rarely, if ever, include GLOs because I find the SLOs are much more specific and help me plan my lessons. So I had just copied and pasted all of this word for word, and it does refer to which GLOs it does cover, but I don't actually go back and copy paste the GLOs. I just do the SLOs. Okay. Okay, so now we have our planning pages done and we're ready for the next page. And the next page is just a blank grid. Okay, and so you have a bunch of boxes that are empty and you're going to fill them in. And this is how we organize, we lay out the unit. So I do this first before I go on to actually planning the lessons because I find sometimes that I think, okay, I need to do this next and then this and then this. But sometimes that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it makes more sense to do outcome 9 before outcome 2. It all depends on your unit and what you're teaching. So I make sure that I organize the progression of my lessons before I start doing the details. And how I do it is simply what you're seeing here. So this one at the back here is my unit plan organizer for growth and changes in animals. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's just the lesson number. And so I'm going to start with a lesson on growing humans, and it's these 2 outcomes. Then I'm going to do offspring, which is this outcome. So you see this is 1, 2, and then 8. And then I'm going to do comparing appearances, which is again a review of 8, and I'm adding 9 in. Then lifespan, then growing animals, which is back to 2, and 11. So I'm kind of all over the place as I am organizing this. And originally, I didn't have this part in. So lesson 7 is a walk on the land. So we're actually going to go outside and go for a walk and observe some things. I originally didn't have this in. I had this one as next. And then when I was done, I was like, oh no, we need to get out a little earlier. So I moved all of these boxes over and added this lesson in. So this is why you really need to lay all of this out before you can start lesson planning. Because sometimes when you look at it holistically on one page, you can see where things need to be moved around. By the end, when you think you're done and you have it laid out perfectly in order of the way you want it, you need to make sure that you've covered all of the outcomes. So as I'm plopping these outcomes into boxes, I'm just checking them off, so I can be sure that I've covered each of them at least once. Because we know we have to cover every outcome. The depth that you cover it is teacher choice. So I might cover one outcome on 5 different lessons because we're really going in deep on that one. But another outcome, I might just touch it once. That's totally fine. Okay. You also don't need to assess every outcome. That's your choice of what you're going to include in your assessments. So during this page, it's just a one-pager. You are brainstorming lesson ideas. You're thinking of the assessments. You're thinking of different activities you can do. Get a scrap piece of paper and make some jot notes and brainstorm all the things you kind of want to do. And then you organize it. I have a list of questions here that I want you to be thinking about as you're planning. So the first one is, how and where will you incorporate Indigenous knowledge? Do your activities allow for a variety of thinking and ways to show knowledge? So if your first 3 lessons you think are going to include a paper and pencil worksheet, then maybe you need to think for your 4th lesson, we got to put that paper and pencil down and do something different. Okay, so we're getting a variety of knowledge. If I've done a journal entry, then maybe the next day it's not going to be another journal entry. Maybe it's going to be an art thing. Maybe it's going to be a cut and paste activity. Maybe it's going to be an observation. Maybe it's going to be an experiment, a project, a building activity, design. The next one, have you allowed for different teaching strategies? So this is where we kind of want to make sure we're not stuck in a rut of PowerPoint, teacher at the front of the room, and then do a worksheet and keep that repeating every day. So if you did PowerPoint lecture type things for your first 2 lessons, how are you going to teach it a little differently next time? Maybe we're going to do a group work project. Maybe we're going to do centers or stations. Maybe they're going to do independent research projects. I don't know. Think about different ways you're going to teach that. Is there independent work, partner work, whole group opportunities? So you need a variety of all of this throughout the whole unit. That's why holistically looking at this one page is so important, because you're going to now lay all this out and then you can say, okay, I'm going to do 2 partner works here. I'm going to have throughout it 3 different group things, and then this is going to be independent. You're planning all of that out. Now, this is important. The last 2 are your differentiation thoughts. So, are there ways for students to expand their learning? Have you planned for the high achieving students? So, students that are over and above, are they able to expand and grow and move beyond? Or are they stuck with sticking in the box? So, let's say, for example, I'm doing a lecture, PowerPoint, hand out a worksheet where they have to cut and paste and sort animals by where they live. That's very closed. There is no way to do less or more. So what is something that your high achieving students can do to show that they can go a little further? So what can you add to that? How can you, yes, the sorting is great, but what else could we do for those high achieving students that need just a little bit more? And then on the flip side, have you met the needs of your students with special needs and or learning difficulties? So have you planned something for the lowest achieving students? Are they able to work alongside the rest of their class? Are they able to do something? So in that example of a cut and paste sorting, maybe it's as simple as you're going to pre-cut their pieces. Maybe you're going to give them a template that has 3 of the animals already glued into the right areas, so they just have to glue a few extra ones. Okay, so just think about those quick things. You do not want to be planning alternate activities for 4 different groups, but you just want to see, how can I just do one quick thing to allow my high and lowest achieving students to be a part of the class. This unit plan organizer here is one that I did for the a book study. So on the Trapline book, and it was mixed for grade 4 social studies. So we did grade 4 social studies. That's what all of these 4KI, all these outcomes are. And then I also I had ELA outcomes, because we all know that ELA outcomes, they're not as specific. Okay. I have all of this organized, and so that at the end I can look at the final task here is at the bottom. This is what we're doing: a day on the land, feast and reflection circle on the unit. I've made sure that I've led up. I have enough stuff that they can be successful here. They have a research project that they're doing at the end. So there's almost, for this assignment, for this unit, there's 3 final tasks because I want to see different ways of knowing. So one sum up final task is for the ELA outcome. So they're retelling the book on the trap line using a timeline. So I have little pictures for them and they have to put them in order in a timeline. There's some blank squares that they have to draw their own things to add to the timeline to retell the story. Then they're doing a final task that's more focused on the social studies aspect, though it is also ELA because it's a research project. So it's reading and writing and getting information. And they have to research an influential Manitoban or an influential place. And those are the outcomes for that. And then our final task that kind of brings it all together is all the learning that we've done on Norway House and residential schools and learning about elders and feasts and things like that, where we're going to do our own. Okay. So this is the big, like this, honestly, planning this unit plan. This one in the middle here is a health unit plan for grade 5, and it's only a 6-day plan. Okay. But it's the same thing. This part here takes the longest. Okay, because you're really brainstorming and you're moving things around quite a bit. Okay, here we have planning the actual lessons. So at this point, you have it all set up. It's in your head, it's on a grid. You know you have covered all the outcomes you need. You laid it all out beautifully on that organizer sheet. You know exactly how much time it's going to take, so you can go back to page 1 and enter your time frame up there. Now you need to do the actual lesson plans. But lesson plans on a unit plan template are a lot smaller. However, they are never vague. So they're clear but concise, because any teacher should be able to pick up your unit plan and be able to give a lesson with that information. So it still has step-by-step instructions, the direct links to videos. So if it's a digital version, I can just click on it and get your video. You explain the teaching strategy you're using. You have your assessments there, instructions for adaptations. Everything is there just like a lesson plan, but it is written a lot more concise. Okay. A lesson plan is a lot easier to follow. So what I say here is any teacher could pick up your unit plan and teach it, not any person. Okay, but so a trained teacher could pick it up and use it. It might not be enough for a lay person. So let's look at a blank sample. When you open up the template, you'll have this blank, and you will just copy and paste and add as many boxes as you need. Okay, you're going to need 1 box for each lesson in your organizer. So if you have 20 boxes filled in your organizer, you're going to need 20 lesson plans. Okay. Now, some people ask, like, well, what if my lesson plan, let me go back here. What if this lesson plan, character analysis on Musham, what if this takes 2 periods? That's totally fine. It's still 1 lesson. It's just taking 2 periods. So I only need 1 box, but I'll just write that I need 2 periods for it. Okay. First box, include your lesson title. And so what I do for this is I just go back here, copy this whole box, or copy this whole box, or copy whatever, and it goes here. Paste. That's simple. So once it's already, all their grid is done, this part is easy. Now you'll notice that this is the same. Activate, acquire, apply. There's also a closure here. It's not listed here for some reason, but on the actual template, the closure is there as well. That's where you're typing up your plan. Quick bullet points. I will show you examples of a filled out ones in this video. Use bullet points or numbers. Make sure your plan is sequential and it has all of the important information you need. Always going to be in point form, just to save space. In the next box is materials and resources. Just the specific ones. Don't put pencils. Like they always have pencils. Just the specific stuff that you need to remember as a teacher. Oh yeah, I got to remember to bring that today. Next is for adaptations. This is more difficult to do at the university level, much easier to do when you're in the classroom because you actually have a student in mind. You can think of Sammy in your head and say, okay, yeah, I've got to remember to plan for Sammy. In general, for this, what you want to do because you don't know your students yet, just plan for students that have trouble with reading and writing, because that's going to be the main thing you're going to be worrying with, okay? You're going to be dealing with students that are struggling to read and write independently. So, what can you do to sort of support that? So, think about that. But when you're actually teaching and you know these students well, you're not thinking of general adaptations, you're thinking of kids. Okay, what do I need to do for John and what do I need to do for Joe? Over here is the assessments. So, how are you assessing the outcome you listed over here? Simple as that. So, now let's look at some examples. Okay, so this is a health one. So being a good friend, this is the outcome. I can do it in short form because on my first pages, I have the whole thing. So if I forget, I can go back and read the whole outcome on page 1. So right here, I just need a title and a code. Now we're activate. How are you getting the students to think? It's just like a lesson plan. Brainstorm in a circle. What makes you a good friend? Read the book The Rabbit Listened. Acquire, how you teach the outcome. This is sequential. Include the teaching strategies you're going to do. So I'm making a T-chart. This is how I'm teaching it and what I'm teaching. I have the specific questions I want to remember to ask. And then the apply, how are they going to show what they know? How are they going to practice on their own? And they have a sheet that they're going to be filling out. Now you see I have included the sheet here as a snip because then I can write less. So you'll see in my unit planning, I include a lot of these little pictures here because I can just write, they're going to complete, look, students will submit their completed worksheet. If I only have that without including this screenshot, that's not enough information. What worksheet are they doing? What does it look like? What are you talking about? What does the worksheet have to show? So just by including the snip, I can quickly be like, oh yeah, that's the worksheet. Easy peasy. My adaptations, students can write or draw their answers. So I've designed the worksheet that has space for either. Students can work with a group if they want to share their ideas. They can help with spelling. The T-chart that we're making over here in Acquire is going to still be posted on the board. That will help with spelling support. And this is just a list of things I need. Okay. I need the T-chart for brainstorming. I need copies of the worksheet, copy of the book. So this is a health 1 lesson plan. Here is a snip of the science, classifying animals and caring for offspring. So again, I have my title and my outcomes that I just copied and pasted from my grid. I have a link to my video that we're going to watch here. I have my slideshow done. So if you have a PowerPoint prepared already, reference the slides, how you're going to use them. So that's what I did. I do not just write PowerPoint. You have to actually create the PowerPoint. You have to explain how you're using the PowerPoint in your plan. Because again, any teacher could pick this up. So your unit plan must include the PowerPoint and then an explanation of how to use those slides in the PowerPoint. And different groupings. So this one I have an independent part. I have a small group with the teacher. These are my things that I need. Again, take screenshots of your worksheets and assessment to include that. Look, because I wrote for my assessment here, I only had to write folding activity because I have it right here. Okay, so it makes it a lot more simple. Here is another example. So this is from my on the trap line social studies grade 4 unit. Again, copy and paste the title with the outcomes here. I got my activate, acquire, apply. Don't forget the closure That was a newer addition that I've updated the template to include that. What I need to have to be organized, what the adaptations are, and my assessments with the screenshots. Here I also have screenshots because I am doing a different book that kind of partners well with this book to teach the outcome about character analysis of Musha. So we're going to read a second book. So I just put the screenshot in there of the book and also the screenshot of the anchor chart that I'm going to use because we're talking about character traits. So I have an anchor chart I'm going to show for that. So I just included that in there. That's why I can just write, look at the character traits anchor chart. I don't have to describe anything else because I have a picture right here. Okay. So again, I'm going to say this again, but I have already said it in this video. Without the pictures of the worksheet that's included here, then writing worksheet is just not enough information. So you'd have to actually explain it. Okay. So that is the basics of the template, but now you have to keep going. So once your template is finished, you are not done. Oftentimes you're doing all of this at the same time, but unit planning is more than just one document. There are so many other things that you may need. Now, I do say that you may need because you might not need all of these things for every unit and every lesson that you're doing, but generally you will need worksheets. So here is some worksheets that I either made by myself or I got. This one is a teacher pay teacher one. These ones I made myself. So you're organizing the worksheets that you're going to need for all of your independent practice. Your PowerPoints that you have to make. So this is from the classifying animals. And so this one, I have all of my PowerPoints created for the whole unit. And that's what I refer to in my unit plan. So if I don't have the PowerPoints done, then I can't refer to it in my unit plan. Okay. This is another just example of a PowerPoint that I made for a poetry unit. Other things you may need. Are you doing a class trip? Do you need parent letters to go home? So this was a social justice action project that we were doing for a unit on residential schools. And then we were doing a project of heart. If you've heard of it, Google it. It's an amazing thing to do with your students. And so we were doing a community project for Thompson. So we made my grade twos made lunches for the students. So all of the parents brought in different items. We did a cultural days thing. This is for a social studies unit. So these are both things from my grade 2 class. Different things you might need. This one is more of, this is an invitation for parents to come in and share stuff about their own culture with the class. And this is a project that we did as class. So your land-based opportunities, make sure that you're including that. In every unit, you should have a land-based opportunity. So go outside and get things done. So this is an outside land-based opportunity. Okay, there's my daughter. This is an inside, but still land-based opportunity. So don't let weather make you unable to do this. You can still do this stuff. Other things you need to create your anchor charts. So again, I made this one, but this one I just got from TPT. Are you having guest speakers? So this is the author of the book on the Trapline. I organized for him to come in and do a Zoom with us. Garrison Satie came in and read a book with our class. This is a NASA astronaut who did a FaceTime with one of my students that was working on a unit on space. So make those connections, and maybe you need to organize guest speakers and presenters. Definitely you're going to have to make anchor charts. I can't imagine teaching anything without having an anchor chart or two for students to refer to. Okay, the next thing is vocabulary. We know, because you've all taken that reading course, that background knowledge and vocabulary is so important to comprehension, is important for understanding. So which vocabulary are you specifically going to have to teach? This one here is from my Jumanji unit. So there's no set vocabulary that ELA will tell you you must teach. However, science, there is in that first outcome for every single unit, every single grade. O1, the first SLO, is going to tell you the science vocabulary. But often there's a few more words you need to add in. So get those. So I made this on PowerPoint. This is my title for my bulletin board. And then I made word cards that I slowly add up on a bulletin board. So important to explicitly teach that. Bulletin board displays. So this one is a piece for my Jumanji unit where they each made a square. It turns into a huge bulletin board game board. Project of Heart, I had to collect stuff for our project on Norway House. This is also from that project bulletin board display. So anchor charts will go up here, pocket charts, words. This says reconciliation because they had to do a whole bulletin board on that. So getting all that stuff organized. And rubrics, checklists, assessments. How are you going to assess things? So this is for my Influential Manitobans Places Research Project. So there's a rubric for that with feedback. For a grade 2 thing I did on All About Canada, they had to make a poster and they had to include all of this criteria. And so this was just a checklist. Honestly, if they had all of these things, they're good. There was a rubric that went with this as well. This is an ELA, so they had a book project choice board. So at the end of our novel study, they could choose one of these 4 things to do their project on with their group. And then I have a project checklist that they cut off, go through, make sure they have all that, and my rubric. And this is a final project for my community in grade 2. So they each had to build houses and we made our own little community and then we decorated it. So this is their final project for that. So the last few slides here that I went through are just showing you that there's a lot more to unit planning than just this document. You really have to have every part all organized together. And once you have this, I'm telling you, if you put more time into this, then in the end, you have this for years to come. Yes, you're going to update it. You're going to change things. You're going to take out one lesson, put in a different one, change up a project, whatever. But it's so much easier once you have all of this laid out perfectly. So make sure that you really are spending your time getting all this stuff organized. This is the end of this video. Oh my goodness, it's almost 40 minutes. So I want you to let me know if you want any more specific videos. I can definitely make those and make this into more of a series. Reach out to your field placement instructor that's going to be supervising your specific field placement to set up one-on-one meetings to do